Hello, and welcome to Cursed Ones 101. This is your one-stop shop for everything Cursed Ones lore and history and just general chaos. We're going to be going over all the different, arcs of the series, all the different seasons that we've had so far, and we're just going to be having a nice conversation. We're going to do some Q&As, and, this is the part where you guys, who maybe haven't wanted to sit through 106 episodes of Cursed Ones, get to finally understand what is happening. Because, sometimes I think we all don't know what's happening. Just in general. It's a mystery. This is being streamed live, as is the campaign, every single Sunday on twitch.tv/LissyLoops. And for those watching on Twitch who don't know, we have a YouTube channel, which is the Cursed Ones D&D. And that's where all of the VODs are updated for those who want to go rewatch the series. Most of them are up with timestamps, so the earlier sessions don't have those. Either way, it's a pretty comprehensive, just gallery of Cursed Ones. We only have a little bit of lost media here and there from a corruption, but otherwise, everything is where it should be in our personal VODs channel. But hi everyone, welcome to, once again, Cursed Ones 101. I am your host for today. I am Dean, I'm the Dungeon Master, and I play everyone else. I run this show, as I tend to say. Currently, I'm not joined by any of my players, but there will be some little introductions to who they are throughout the series of this slideshow that I made on PowerPoint during a fugue state before work, after work, something like that. Anyways, I suppose, without further ado, I think it's about time that we jump into the history of the Cursed Ones and a little Q&A session. Let's jump in. Let's do it. All right. Welcome to the Cursed Ones 101, which was made, of course, by me. I have to do the classic PowerPoint by. And we're just going to jump right into it. How about we? So, the world of Ethos is where everything begins. This is the world that our campaign takes place in. We are a completely homebrew setting, and as you can see on the left, I don't think that this has been shown off on stream before, but that's the official map, made by me, of Ethos. So, there are 5 main countries, as you can see, those being Azamir, which is that feeling when your feet won't get warm no matter how many socks you put on. Of course, we have Yashandale, which is if New York had an LSD-induced Lisa Frank fever dream. We have Sunder, which is very much described as it's likely a prospector on the road will murder you, assuming there are crystals worth millions inside of your bones. We have Wolvenshire, which is the country equivalent of being locked in an oven with a door facing the wall. And lastly, we have Arrows, which is Canada. So, all of these countries are kind of corrupt in one way or another, but not just with the shitty dictators and invasions of the DM's personal trauma projections. These countries also have curses, as the name would imply. So, this begs the question, what are curses? Which brings us to Curses 101. That's right, we're doing a 101 inside a 101. So, the Curse War. This is probably the main event historically that you want to know for the Cursed Ones. It happened 100 years ago between 2 different factions, these being the good guys and Curse God. Now, you're probably wondering, what's Curse God? Well, I have the answers for you. Curse God is the god that made curses. I know, it's hard to believe, really. Yeah, and what kind of curses did he make? There are 3 types of curses that were introduced a bit later on in the series, but I'll be telling them right off the bat. There are Abyssal, Empyrean, and Tellurian curses. Now, these are advanced curses, and we're gonna do a little deep dive into what these curses are, what they mean, just so you can start understanding better the lore and the world and everything we got going on. All right, so the first one we are going to go over is Abyssal curses. So every single category of curses has 2 main subtypes. The first one for Abyssal is spiritual curses. This is not to be confused with spiritualism from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the religion of spiritualism. Just thought Yu-Gi-Oh! Was more important. And basically, spiritual curses involve ghosts of some kind. They're frequently seen in the FNAF lore, if you're wondering what a ghost is. These ghosts are also technically cursed if you want to go deeper into things, but typically spiritual curses will mean you're haunted in some sort of way. Your spirit either has been altered in some way, or some active outward spirits are affecting yours. Then there are mental and comprehension. This is not to be confused with mental illness from my brain, just in case you were wondering. Or my mental breakdown from 3 weeks ago. Just, in case that was any concern. It's not that. It's a whole different breed of things. Basically, mental or comprehension curses, I'm thinking of Boku no Hero, make your perception of the world altered in some way or another. For example, suddenly you wake up thinking grass is water, and despite the evidence it's grass, you'd sooner think you're Jesus than think that the water isn't water. And finally, just in case you were wondering, the themology of abyssal curses is fish. That's fucking horrifying. Alright, and the next curse we are going to look at is Empyrean curses. These include, in the subtypes, it has sensory, first of all, which is any curse related to the alteration of your sensory perception. I think we've all gone to, grade 2 and learned that our senses are touch, taste, sight, hearing, and smell. Except for me, because I can't smell. And basically, sensory curses are advanced cataracts. And it's also the cilantro soap gene. Both things that I have. Then, after that, is prophetic curses, which are probably the weirdest curse subtype ever. It's any curse related to the alteration of fate, the past, or the future. Basically, you're fucked if you have one of these. For example, your firstborn will automatically be devil spawn, and if you refuse to birth them, the heat death of the universe will soon be upon us. That's a good example of a prophetic curse. And in case you're wondering, much like the previous one, Empyrean curses have a themology, that one being birds. God, what the hell is this? Alright, and finally, the last type of curse, as said before, is Tellurian curses. Oh, it did a fucking spin. That is rad as fuck. Alright, and these curses are either environmental, which are curses that tangibly change the environment around you. Basically, for an example, every tree you touch gains eyeballs, and you know for certain that every plank of wood is looking at you from somewhere within its flayed corpse. Also, climate change. That's an environmental curse, but it's also real. Like, think about that, okay? Climate change is real, and it's a problem. Alright, and from there we have physical curses. These are a curse that changes yourself physically. It's probably the first thing you're going to think of when curses come to mind. Basically, you could have a curse that, say, for example, every time you eat something, you partially become that something. It's also Kirby. And in case you were wondering, the physical kind of manifestation of Tellurian curses is muscles. Yeah, that's big beef right there, baby. Well, with the curses out of the way, that means we can officially, finally, go to the story of the Cursed Ones. For real now, no more preamble. And we get some intense-ass music for it. So, our story of the Cursed Ones begins, of course, in Ethos, in the year M, which is year 1000 for those who do not know. And we are going to head over to Threadwire Yashandale, a city of celebrations, of splendor, of so much wild enchantments, and in this time period, it is home of the Festival of the Sun, one of the largest festivals and celebrations in the entire world. And that's where we meet our main characters. Why, you may ask? Because in the crowd, after a very, very wild auction, you know, a lot of people betting on something that they don't even know really what it is. It's a blind auction. After that, there is a scream that rips out through the crowd as someone starts coughing up this thick foam and slowly warps and corrupts into a muscular beast. But luckily, before it can start hurting the civilians, a number of heroes rush out to save the day. Starting first with this lovely character right here, that being Michael Bozo. They're a human rogue with the pronouns he, him, a clown, as you can clearly see. The player is Riley. And their curse is Jerry, which you can kind of plainly see on that stomach there. Yeah, it's a stomach mouth. It's a physical curse, as we've talked about before. And dear God, what the fuck? What the fuck? Anyways, the next hero that, well, actually, they're not really doing heroics. They are immediately pickpocketing people who are running away in terror. But it's Sakara, no last name. They're a tiefling ranger, they, them pronouns. Edgy as all hell. Their player is Sparrow. And we don't really know their curse just yet. However, that little amulet they have on is a little bit sus. And yes, as I said before, they started the campaign by immediately looting people, civilians who were in danger, and who were running for their lives. So, real hero right here. And indeed, they are a Hot Topic looking fucker, but so am I, so no judgment there. Next up, joining in on the fight, is Triao Forcea. They're a dragonborn barbarian. And they are, of course, the Big Titty Dragon BF. And their player is Eon. Their curse, we don't know yet, much like before, but they do seem to suffer from a very severe case of insomnia. And as you can see in their first scene, they are partial to yeeting javelins as they throw a fair number of those at the shambling beast in the crowd. Next up, in helping to take down the beast, is Lily Lenovel. They're an elf monk, she, her, and as you can see, she has eyes. This will be important later. Their player is Kiki, and their curse, we actually never find this one out, spoiler alert, but currently the best guess we have is face blindness. They're painfully innocent, dumb of ass, and full of unspoken tragedy. And here we have the lovely Wilfred White. They're an Aarakocra bard, he, him, and of course the only one with a moral compass. Their player is Cole, and we don't know their curse, but he does keep talking to the air. We're not really sure what that's about just yet. And of course, his most iconic line, guys? Oh, and next, of course, we have the beautiful, the most wonderful Sharpay Ashes. Oh yes, look at her. She is a Fire Genasi Ranger, she, her, and is basically Arsonist Sharpay Evans. I almost said Shart. That's really a great start to this segment. Player is Cece, the lovely Cece, and her curse is the Reverse Midas's Touch, which is that any gold turns to silver, any silver to copper, and any copper turns to dust. Basically, she is the bane of a capitalist existence, and this is an environmental curse. And of course, she wants fabulous. So, the party all band together to take down this creature with a little bit less help from Sakara, who is still looting. But afterwards, the day is saved and the festival continues on, where the party start buying from a number of street vendors. And they're about to get scammed for about 50 gold pieces, until a mysterious figure walks up and offers some help to this little shambling mess of a party. This is Benny Jets. They are an Azamar sorcerer, a Muppet. They have a mullet and a pompadour. Their player is Karime, and we don't currently know their curse. He honestly seems normal. Nothing could be wrong with this dude. I'm sure we'll find nothing strange or unusual about Benny Jets in the future. Oh, and of course, he is the party's dad. Benny is not a Muppet, unfortunately. And with the party assembled, that is going to bring us to the first arc of the campaign, Fraud's Gold. So, after the whole incident in the streets, the auctioneer I talked about before, who is an absolute fucking disaster, by the way, goes missing, just gone into oblivion. And one of the civilians attacked by the rah-rah horrible monster in the streets, her name is Emily. It turns out that auctioneer is her dad, and she comes to the party, seeing them beautifully dispatch of that creature, and asks if they can track down. And just as a side note, at the end of this arc, they put a tracker on the auctioneer, and then they forget about it for the rest of the series. It's still on him. If they ever check it, I will tell them where it is. So, they end up tracking him down to the Goblin's Cave, which is where Sharpay enacts a wonderful plan, which is to make a goblin conga line and immediately recruit all of the goblins from their hobgoblin leader. His name is Kandar the Wrath. He's awful, and she recruits them and conga lines the hell out of the cave, saving the dad in the process, and just generally making some wonderful friends. However, in this little room that Kandar has, there's another caged figure, not just the auctioneer, which is where we are introduced to our final member of the first iteration of the party, that being Morning Phase. It's a Tabaxi warlock, she, her, a Beck enthusiast, that's their... Yes, that is named after the musician. I still think about that, but that is their patron, Beck. Player is Hockey, and their curse is Pop Goes the Limb, which is that every morning one of their limbs detaches. This has been stolen directly from Misfortune from Skullgirls, and it is a physical curse. And they are basically the poor little meow meow of the party. And here we are, the party at last formed and ready to take on any adventure. You know, they start heading back after... I can speak totally. They head back to the village after successfully rounding off their first mission and saving Emily's father, when a sudden rumbling breaks out. Holy shit, oh my god, 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 what the fuck is that? That's the Pangea. this is going to be their main transportation for the rest of the series, and the Pangea is run by someone named the Conductor. He's a strange tiefling man who seems to be symbiotically attached with this giant Pangea wild-ass looking creature. And he gives the party their first mission. That mission? The artifacts. So, in Cursed Ones, there are a number of deities. These are called the Letter Gods or the Celestials. There were 3 iterations of the Celestials, the first one being Above, Life, Death, Fate, Justice, Instinct, and Aeonian. The second iteration was Above, Life, Death, Spontaneum, Judgment, Instinct, and Aeonian. And finally, that brings us to the current iteration of the Celestials, which is Above, Zeitgeber, Spontaneum, Judgment, Instinct, and Aeonian. So all of them are represented by one letter. Those are their sacred names, though most people tend to, what's like the opposite of alliteration? It's just they lengthen the names to the words that they symbolize. And all of these Celestials have their own artifact, and these artifacts were used to seal away Curse God in the Curse War. First of all, we have the Sigil of the Above, we have the Heart of Life, the Sword of Death, the Sickle of Judgment, the Axe of Instinct, the Aeonian Rose, and these were the artifacts used to cure the world the party thinks is going to cure the world of curses. The Conductor says that if these artifacts are brought together, then perhaps they could undo the curse that Curse God put on the world. Also, there's the Dice of Spontaneum. Get it? It's last, it's spontaneous, it's funny. So these are the artifacts that the party must track down to try and end curses. So, there are some pros of this plan. That being that curses will be cured and the world will be saved. And that's great, you know? So it sounds like a good plan, you know, thinking, you know, let's go round up these artifacts, let's save the world, let's cure our curses. Things are great. And there are a couple of cons of the plans, including who are the Letter Gods? Who is Curse Gods? Who's the Conductor? What are the artifacts? What even are curses? And what is that giant Pangea thing? Also, where are these artifacts? We have literally no clue. When do we cure these curses? Why do all these artifacts, used for a whole other thing, also possibly have the chance to cure curses when the gods initially didn't? And how are we going to do this? Well, there's an answer to how. That is Ellie Dever. And he is Bill Nye the Science Guy, the #1 researcher on curses, and who the Conductor points the party to begin their investigation. He is the author of a very shitty curse book, friend of the Conductor, and everyone automatically thinks he's evil because his name is Ellie Endeavor, and that sounds like evil endeavor. I should have saw this one coming. I'm an idiot. He's not evil. I need to preface this off the front. He's not evil. I promise. Fucking trust me. I swear. And he has a curse as well, being an NPC in this world. His curse is magic signatures. He sees people by the magic heat signatures instead of what they truly are. So he knows your shit, you can't hide anything from him. And that art, by the way, was made by Eon, lovely Ultra Guardians. So, with Elian, they need to head over to their next location, riding on the back of the Pangea. That's going to bring us to Snowdell, which is a frozen tundra wasteland in the middle of, God, nowhere. And basically, this is where the party's first real adventure starts. In the thick snow, they find themselves in this small village, which is almost completely desolate and in a strange state of, I guess, just disrepair at this point. So, turns out, Snowdell is going through something at the moment, and there's a lot of mysteries that start to pop up. First of all, please do not confuse Snowdell with Snowdin from Undertale. This has happened so many times. And Snowdell is being attacked by these winter wraiths, these strange, humanoid, thin, slender creatures that attack the party and seem to be converging in on the village, which is only being protected by a wooden wall. These winter wraiths are renowned for their goop, which the party collects when they die and eats. Great. And there's also Elian within Snowdell. He is renowned for his sex appeal to Triao and hated for his swag by Sharpay. Yes, at the start of the campaign, we already have our first romance as Elian and Triao start awkwardly low charisma flirting with one another. Alongside that, in Snowdell, there's a bunch of missing kids. Missing people in general, but recently there's been talk of this one child, May Snowflower, completely vanishing into the night to check on a village, on the forest outside of the village. And she keeps going missing, she keeps turning up again, but people worry that the winter wraiths are dragging her out to a place that she can't return from. And of course, there are more wraiths everywhere as the party try and track her down in the forest with Elian's help. This is where they find that the reason May has been sneaking out is because she's been conversing with a little orphan boy named Owen. His curse? To make winter wraiths out of anything he touches. The party, to get to Owen, find this strange magical gate in the woods, and when they step through, the sky erupts into this red moon. This is called a blood moon. It happens randomly at nights. And this is where the party learns Benny's curse. Under a blood moon, he turns into a beast and attacks anything in sight. And after a little bit of shenanigans and trying to escape the wrath of Benny's bestial form, they start pressing the roots and the buttons inside this gate, which leads them into a strange death dungeon, which they find is run by a ghost. There's a number of golden sigils on the wall that cause damage to the party, and it's a bit of a scene. But eventually, at the end of the day, they manage to save both Owen, they manage to put a ghost spirit to rest, and they manage to stop the city from being attacked by the winter wraiths, which can be seen here. So, with that underway, Elian gives them their first objective, which is, of course, to head on over to Eros. So, in Eros, they have a little bit of a mix-up in the plan, as Grey Old White, Wilfred's dad, is gone. First of all, though, when they start to enter Eros, they are attacked by another one of those beasts that attack them in the opening. This time, it's their cart driver, a lizard folk, who suddenly erupts into strange muscular contortions and attacks the party. But they quickly manage to slip away and make their way to Wilfred's hometown, where they meet Emily, or M. White, which is everyone's favorite mom. She sings a lovely song, the Song of a Hero, and her curse is that she counts as undead and thus cannot be healed. And alongside this, they are informed of Wilfred's dad, Grey Old White, who is gone and missing. He was last seen heading up to the floating village above the hometown, and from there, he's been gone. So the party are shrunk down into birds by M's polymorph spell, because the only way to get up to Norfolk, the floating city, is to either be an Aarakocra or a bird. And during these adventures in Norfolk, a lot of stuff happens. Sakara almost kills Bozo with a knife, and during an auction, this strange lizard folk starts to hand out this quote-unquote cure for curses, which has been lovingly dubbed the gold shit by the party. And Lily drank it, and suddenly she claimed that her curse was getting worse, so that's a little bit sketchy. It's a kind of a snake oil salesman type deal. And this seller is called Court, who the party tracks down and realizes he's running this deep underground scheme, and I think he's the villain. Oh shit, he's dead. So, they kill him in the first encounter. Bozo eats him whole. But now, another lizard folk rises up to be the true villain of the Eros arc, that being Wyron Elzebub, a strange lizard folk who is carrying on the legacy of Court, and just generally is doing some sketchy shit, frames Benny for murder, is actively killing people, and selling this weird snake oil type cure for curses, quote-unquote, and also took away Greyold, who was trying to use the cure on his son, Wilfred. He was trying to gather it so he could cure Wilfred's curse. Unfortunately, he got kidnapped, and Wyron sent him up to this weird mountain. And it is in that mountain that they realize the mountain has a heart. It's alive! Yeah, no. Turns out this mountain, it's a god. It's that Zeitgeber guy I talked about. And Sharpay starts communicating with the mountain. It's wild! So here you see, pictured on the left, or the right, I don't know, directions, is M and Greyold. Lovely couple. We love them so much. Unfortunately, after tracking down Wyron and Court to the mountain, a battle for arrows breaks out. See, there were tensions in Eros for a long time between lizardfolk and Aarakocra. They had a war about 90 years ago in which they nearly wiped each other out, and that's when a bunch of prejudice started breaking out, and that flying city of Norfolk actually rose up from the sky and blocked off all lizardfolk from entering. So basically, tensions start to rise as the party provoke another battle for Eros. And it's a horrible battle. It's fierce. There's a bunch of different fronts that people are fighting on. Wilfred is up in Norfolk defending those posts. The rest of the party is down at the bottom, just trying to make sure that these horrible hordes of lizard folk don't get into the villages. And during the battle, things get so heated that even without a blood moon, Benny turns into a curse beast. And also the mountain stands up. Yeah, no, turns out it's also a guy. It's big and not really the best sight to look at, but it starts smashing the shit out of people. And as the battle is coming to a head, things are starting to look victorious for the party. M dies. Wilfred sends down a battalion of Aarakocra, and they send down a spear, and they kill her in one shot. Critical hit. Yeah. That sucks. So, that's gonna bring us to our next little part of the adventure, where after that goes down, the party are gifted the golden heart, the heart of life, and the sword of death by the tall mountain of Zeitgeber, and they continue on their way, just completely disregarding what just happened there, as we are going to head right on back to Yashendale, the wonderful, bustling city of chaos, drugs, and just a whole lot of shit. But instead of heading to Threadwire this time, they're on the hunt for the third artifact in their arsenal. So, FaZe quickly visits home, where Trio has the best stew in the world from a lovely little tabaxi woman named Web of Smiles. But when FaZe visits home, they notice that their sister is gone. Her sister has been kidnapped and brought to a strange drug-inhabited town called Pankith, which is basically Las Vegas, but with less laws than normal. And it also has a giant cult worshipping Beck. And, you know, it's a bit of a weird scene. It's in Pankith that the party meets Kanye North, who is a pastiche of Kanye West. This was a weird part in Cursed One's history, but Kanye North basically traps Wilfred, Bozo, and FaZe inside this strange escape room dungeon, and during that encounter, Kanye burns one of FaZe's legs to a complete crisp. Chaos happens, and FaZe and Wilfred get into a bit of a heated argument down there. This is also about the time that Bozo just kind of passes out, probably from some sleeping gas, and just really kind of doesn't wake up again. So, in the Death Dungeon, there's a lot of conflict. But, you know, during that time, there's a lot of stuff happening on the surface with the rest of the party, including Lily killing a bug and inheriting a whole casino from the bug, where Lily promises to spread propaganda for the rest of their life. And this is the Pancake Casino, which is going to be where the party is getting their money for the rest of the campaign. And after that, when the whole situation with Kanye, FaZe, Wilfred, Bozo, etc. is over, they go to this demonic store, which is basically a demonic Bath and Body Works, and they make a deal with a demon. Benny makes a deal for his magic to be corrupted so FaZe can get their leg back, and the party deals together. I believe Sakara gives up a piece of them to receive the Sickle of Judgment, which is one of the artifacts on their list. We never learned how that demon got the artifact, and that is still a mystery up in the air. And after that, there's a bit of a battle for the casino. You see, there's this other guy named Ribestine Cupper who wants to inherit the casino because he's been fighting for that land for ages, only for Lily to squash the previous owner, which is a bug named Floor, and just to inherit it. So there's a battle with a bunch of strange casino games, but during this battle, a strange traveler decides to join in on the fun. That being Cornelius Cousteau Dupont Jaffray Cochot Bruno Chapelle Allaire Escoffier Bonhomme Dutoit Nira Dever. He's here, he's queer, and is indeed a buccaneer, played by Cole and a fabulous actor and silly little man, gay man supreme, Chaos. And very quickly, he falls in love with a bodyguard for Rippenstein Cupper, the one trying to fight for the casino. This bodyguard is Hugo Dever, the brother of Ellie and Dever, and very quickly they have a really cute romance, and it's honestly adorable, and I love them so much. But after inheriting the casino, getting the third artifact, etc., the party come upon the Midnight Circus. Basically, this is Bozo's old crew. They were the people who dyed his hair with blood and made him I can't even speak right now, and made him eat whole pigs with Jerry. It's also where Heartbreaker comes from. Heartbreaker is pictured on the left, and quickly brings the party into what we have lovingly called the Clungeon, where the vampification of Lily Lenoble happens. Lily steps on a randomized tile that gives her a randomized effect, and in a 1 in 100 chance, Lily becomes a vampire from this. So in case you're wondering how Lily got bitten, it wasn't some serious arc where like Strahd or something bit her neck. She stepped on a tile in an avoidable puzzle. This is also where the party stole Harrison's pet snake, Snakey. And it's also where the Tarrascification of Wilfred happened. Yeah, Wilfred got turned into a Tarrasque. Do we remember that? Are we going to talk about that? I don't think we're going to talk about it because it passed. Everything's fine. And this is officially where the bimbofication of the whole campaign happened, because after this point, everything is glitz, glamour, rainbows, chaos, wild shit. So after these strange rounds of going through the Clungeon, where people are transformed into different animals, there's a game of greed, there's vampires, there's tile puzzles, there's chaos happening everywhere, there's a scene where the party go into combat with one another, but they're hallucinating so that they see the other person as a killer clown. In these battles, we have Sharpay versus Sakara, where Sharpay wins, Trio versus Lily, where I believe Trio takes the victory, and Wilfred versus FaZe, where Wilfred stabs himself violently with katars to win the battle. Did I mention that during this fight, this whole kind of Clungeon arc, Wilfred kind of got a crush on Heartbreaker? I don't think we talk about that enough. And finally, the Midnight Circus rounded out with a game of Break My Heart. It's a fun game show where, oh, what the fuck? Vor. So, after Break My Heart, the party gets vored by Jerry. Yeah, remember Bozo's curse? Yeah, it eats them all. Yikes. So everything Jerry has eaten is in there, which is blood. A lot of blood. Where did it come from, you might ask? I know the answers, but they're not pretty. There's also people down there, which means that Bozo has committed canon acts of cannibalism. Yikes. And this is also where the Survivor's Ridge is, which is where the survivors of Vor are. It's this small island in a lake of blood made from trash, where they eat the scrapped remains that Jerry has been consuming for years, and are taking care of one another, and trying to figure out how they're going to escape the stomach void that they have been brought into. Some of the survivors include Kezith, Ducky Becker, and Michael Becker. Actually, Michael Becker isn't in there. We learned that pretty quickly. Ducky tells us that Michael is his brother. Hey, do you guys remember Bozo's name? It's Michael. So Bozo ate his brother, who is like 4. Cursed One's lore is so fun, isn't it? Oh yeah, and you can't forget that in this strange realm, Wilfred starts seeing some strange figure that's talking to him. This is Marcel, the introduction of Wilfred's curse, who is this strange dead lizard folk man who has been following Wilfred around and narrating his entire life. But something about being in Jerry breaks that forcefulness to narrate and lets him start talking of his own free will, which is where their friendship starts forming. And it is in here that they see Jerry's true form, which is a giant mass of teeth and eyes and just general chaos. And that's a picture of it right there. And during this fight, Wilfred managed to slay it and gets his confidence back, and the party frees the Vor survivors. Please do not ask how they were ejected from Bozo, I do not want to say. And after this, Heartbreaker gifted the party the Dice of Spontaneum. So things are moving along here pretty quickly. So we're going to take ahead, and we're going to head on over to Sunder. We're supposed to be heading to Sunder. Wait, what? That is not Sunder. Where the fuck are we? That's not Sunder. Well, basically, we're in the Outlands. So you might be asking, what the hell are the Outlands to begin with? It's a plane between the planes. If you don't know D&D lore, planes are not the airplane type, and it is instead different realms, different dimensions of sorts. And basically, the Outlands is a giant desert from hell, which is not from Dune, I swear. And inside of it are a number of veterans of the Curse War. It is here that we learn from a statue that was erected in the Outlands that Benny was also in the Curse War. One of the survivors of this area is named Quentin T.L. Knives. He's an Aasimar and rides a dragon named Socks. It is here that he tells the party about something called Penethra. There are also a bunch of giant worms. They're called death worms, and they are also not from Dune, I swear, but they prowl the Outlands and start trying to kill the hell out of people. And also, the Outlands are, of course, filled with dragon-riding cowboys, and the party gets a number of dragons that they get to ride throughout the entirety of the Outlands. It's pretty sick. And the party learns that only the Pangea can cross through to the Outlands. It has been the only thing in years that has managed to get through the plains and to appear in the Outlands, and it does so while traveling the world. It's a strange phenomenon that the party never really get an answer to. Hold on, what the fuck is Penethra? Well, glad you asked. That's gonna bring us to Curses 201. Actually, that's a fucking lie. That's gonna bring us to Curses 1001, because this comes out of nowhere and is a really advanced part of Curses. And what do we know about Penethra? Let's do a quick rundown. We know that when someone grows too attached to their curse, they become a beast. And we don't know anything about it. We actually know jack shit about it. So yeah, that's just mentioned. And it'll never be relevant, ever. We don't have to worry about it. It's fine. So, after that little reveal that the party entirely forgets for a good while, we go through some dead zones, which are strange rips in time-space with challenges in them. And to escape, you need to grab a designated key to escape the dead zone. It is here that they learn that Quentin, T.L. Knives, was actually dating the bartender. Now, the bartender is an NPC that the party met on the Pangea. It's the guy who gives them drinks every time they go on and get hella drunk. And his curse is that he changes physically based on his emotional state. And there are a couple of dead zones that the parties run into while trying to get to Graham and escape the dead zones. The first one is Mad Max Fury Deathworm, where Sharpay sees in a shadowy figure the woman of her dreams. There's a maze that's also a confessional, a corn maze that is also a death trap, where Wilfred turns into a scarecrow, and there's also a fight to the death where Trio nearly beheads Sharpay. So, that's a bit of chaos, but they manage to catch the Pangea and escape the Outlands. Not before they hear of this strange figure, though, called G. Wonder what's that about? Oh, and this is Graham. This is the bartender, with some art by Hockey. So, who the fuck is G? Good question. Graham and Quentin had an argument before Graham pieced out of the Outlands, and basically in this argument a few choice-worthy lines were said, and I'm gonna read those out for you now. The gods sat back and enjoyed themselves. We got a power boost, a vision sometimes, something to spice up the fight, but all in all, whenever they get sick of this little narrative, they'll snap their fingers and we'll all die. We killed and killed and killed people who were just pawns to some angry gods having a fucking slap fight. We're just dogs. We're no better than G. So G, if you didn't pick up on it, is Curse God. The god that caused curses. The god of curses, Curse God. And curses, of course, came from Curse God. So another curious thing is that the one-letter naming conventions is also shared by the Celestials. So, that's just something to think about. But also in those one-letter names, those G's stand for something. So what does G stand for? Hehe, good question. We're gonna find out about that later, baby. But with that is going to be the end of Cursed Ones 101. That is the first season of Cursed Ones, which is going to bring us to Cursed Ones 201. But before that, we're going to have a little bit of an open Q&A before we continue on with our lovely saga and deep dive into the Cursed Ones. So, chat is open if anyone wants to give any live questions. If not, I have a couple of questions that the players have asked me, just in general before, the show started today. So feel free in our moderated chat room to ask any questions you would like, because it's all open and free, and let's get going with this. Why don't we? And while we're waiting, I am going to quickly pull up a couple of questions from the Cursed Ones players themselves. Wahaha. All right. I guess I'll answer one of the first questions here. So this is a question that is from Snorp09, one of our players. We'll get to see who Snorp plays soon. So one of the first questions is, what was the first country in Ethos? Good question. The first country in Ethos that was actually properly established was Eros, surprisingly. And that is the only country, I believe, that still shares its name with what it used to be called. All the other countries used to be called something else. I don't think I remember exactly what they were. But Eros has always been Eros. It was the first country fully founded. It was where the first people settled. And let me answer a few other questions here. Oh, there's some from chat. Thank you, thank you. I actually don't think that the widget is popping up for people in chat, so unfortunately that's not showing. Let me quickly see if I can change that, if I can make that show. Because I want you guys to be able to be seen in chat. Maybe not. We'll have to see. It is? Okay, excellent. Good, good, good. Okay, so some questions from chat. From Eggabooha, what is Elian's favorite food? Good question. Elian's favorite food is actually sourdough bread. I believe I've said this in a session before. He loves bread. He loves buttered bread. That's just his favorite. He's a white bread with butter type guy. And from Crime, how has it been developing the series? Have you had any moments where a sudden spot decision worked really well? Yes, actually, I've had a lot of moments where an on-the-spot decision went really well. I can go into this a little bit more in probably the next few sections. But there was actually a bunch of lore stuff that was introduced entirely on a whim. In fact, a whole number of really important characters were made on the spot. And I really think that those did enhance the series a lot. Surprisingly, another on-the-spot decision, and I don't know if it would be right of me to say this, but there was an on-the-spot decision to give you guys the Dice of Spontaneum from the Midnight Circus, but that came back in an arc later, and it actually makes sense. So, woo! But no. Basically, the development of the series has been a piecemeal mess of garbage and nonsense and just me throwing stuff together. And I'm at the point now where everything's chugging along as it should. But when the campaign started, I was honestly a bit scattered in how I made it, which is why the first few arcs are complete chaos without really too much, overlapping between them. But thank you for the question. All right. And I believe those were the ones from chat. So let me answer a few more from, how long until we break it again? Very soon. You know what? I think you guys have the ability to. Let's answer some, okay, so there's some questions here that actually make a good point for this series. These are from Eggabooha, once again. What was the war between the Aarakocra and the lizard folk? That is a great question. I'm gonna have to pull up a little bit of a document. Oh, you do? You do think that you can break my campaign? I would like to see you try. That's a challenge. So I'm gonna have to open up a little document here, and then I can talk, you'll make the Cursed Ones into a crisis? Why would you do this to me? Horrible. So, the war between the Aarakocra and the lizard folk. Allow me to quickly pull up a document once again that's discussing that a little bit more in depth, because I know I have more information on it, just not off the top of my head, because this happened so long ago. Yes, okay, so, in the year CML-XXIX, which, yep, that's how years are formatted in Cursed Ones, the War of the Lizardfolk and Aarakocra started brewing. And it was this conflict, this tension, that was mostly spawned on the fact that... Let me actually see. I believe it was because of a past event. So it was actually after the Curse War, I believe. It was a bit after the Curse War that they started fighting. I might be mixing this up between... Yeah, I'm mixing this up between the dragon and the dwarves. So what happened is that lizard folk, a couple of lizards, had been breaking out and trying to establish themselves. Unfortunately, during one of these basically rallies and such, these lizard folk were trying to obtain more land for their creatures because they argued that Aarakocra lived mostly in the sky. They should have the ground to themselves. So this started brewing some conflicts, some regional conflicts, some territory conflicts. Both Aarakocra and lizard folk were very territorial back then. It's just like in the nature of, I guess, more animalistic species and such. But that started a bunch of problems, especially when this hub that had been supposedly sacred ground for Aarakocra, some people said that that was where the first Aarakocra had ever been made in general. It was desecrated and taken over by lizard folk, which caused Aarakocra to basically all go off the shits, and a bunch of factions were made, and this whole guerrilla war broke out with, at the end of it, the Aarakocra said, fine, you want your land? We're going to confine you to the worst possible parts of Eros. And they trapped away, they forced the lizard folk, who lost the war, to go live in basically the places that were destroyed by the war that was made itself. So the trenches, no man's land, that became lizard folk territory. As the Aarakocra went on to build Norfolk, which was basically a college town. It has the most prestigious college in all of Ethos, and generally just, like, is a really good place, and, you know, it's corrupt. Follow-up question, absolutely. Should I feel guilty for playing a lizard folk? Not at all. Not at all. So the lizard folk actually did have a bit of a point, here and there. I don't know, it's not really my place to say the politics and such, because after the war, even though the lizard folk did start it by desecrating Holy Land, it was also kind of because they were treated really poorly and they weren't being given any houses. And so they were just trying to find land for themselves to live. I don't know, it's a really complex situation. So I wouldn't say you should feel guilty for playing a lizard folk. In fact, lizard folk are like just normal ass citizens. Basically, there are even some Aarakocra who are still fucked up. In fact, a lot of Aarakocra are really racist against lizard folk. It's a bad situation, really. It's corrupt on both sides, I guess is what I should say. So, it's weird. I mean, that's how wars are. I mean, it's not really the campaign thing to go really deep into, like, the political side of war, but you don't need to feel guilty for playing a lizard folk at all. And for your other question, did Mia and Doug take part in the war? Those will be characters that we bring up in Cursed Ones, I believe, 301? They're good perfect. Yeah, good people on both sides. Yes, absolutely. Did Mia and Doug, which are two lizard folks, they're the parents of one of the PCs that comes in later, were they in the Aarakocra and lizard folk war? Yes, Doug was a mechanic for the lizard folk lizard folk and Aarakocra war. Mia was a medic. So they weren't really front lines, and they were actually tending to both sides. So they were middle ground neutral in the whole situation. But yes, to answer your question, they were. And finally, what was the first race upon Ethos? Aasimar. Aasimar were the first people in Ethos. And I actually think that that's about all of the questions that would pertain best to this part of the series, to this area. Allow me to quickly read over some of these. Yeah, I think that those are all the ones that are pertinent to this part of the series. If there are any more questions, I'll leave it open for just a second here. This is questions pertaining to Cursed Ones 101, which is basically from the start of the campaign to the Outland Saga. And let me get some music on. My music stopped. And we hate that. There we go. Yeah. I'll leave that open for just a minute. And from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do, stuck, so thinking of questions, that's fine. How did you get the campaign to always be so interesting? Thank you, Egg. Intuition, I guess? I don't know, I pride myself on being a bit creative and such, so I don't know. I just make threads, really. I'm brainstorming all the time about stuff, and, one of my design philosophies has always been, suck up to the DM, I guess it is, but one of my design philosophies is always take something and make it weirder. For example, there are cowboys all over the Outlands, but they're dragon riding cowboys. And there's also the dead zones in the Outlands, so that's an interesting thing. Threads like Threadwire? That's right! Alright, Well, with that, Cursed Ones 101 has been completed. Congratulations, everyone, on completing your first course of the Cursed Ones curriculum. We are going to do a quick loading screen as I'm going to head to the washroom, clean up, and then we are going to start heading on to the second part of the lesson, Cursed Ones 201. And for the people who are watching on YouTube, tune in to part 2, which should be in a playlist if you're watching that, or will be out probably a few days from when this is being uploaded. So, thanks for watching, and Cursed Ones 201 will be up in just a moment.